Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Financial Issues. I'm Seth Udinsky in here with you this morning. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. We're live this morning from our Studio A location here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania region. Thankful for all of you joining us today on Financial Issues. Great to be here with you, folks. Hey, if you've got questions, get those questions in. We got our phone lines are wide open, so you can join us at 610-363-1110 if you're listening live, of course. 610-363-1110. We got the live chat open right now. Several folks have already joined there. You can message us on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. Also, join us any of those places. Thrilled to have you. Great to be here with you. A lot to get to today, folks. Trump's big, beautiful bill barely survived the House yesterday. Now heading to the Senate floor for consideration. Sam and I will discuss this, as well as one key particular aspect of it having to do with Medicaid. Something that we talk about from time to time on our show here, both in a kind of a narrow sense with Medicaid, but in a general sense of government providing health care as well. We talk about that a little bit more. We'll make some sense of that. Also, Twila Brase joins me later in the show to discuss some more health news, including the Trump administration's efforts to regulate drug prices. Interesting stuff there. Folks, if you have questions for Twila, because I do want to leave some time at the end to answer some of your questions. If you got questions for Twila, please put those into the chat right now. You can also call in and leave Darlene a message if if you'd like to do that at 610-363-1110. Twila is going to be joining me at 9:30 Eastern time, so about 25 minutes from now. So now's a great time to put your question in. That way we'll have time to get it in, and we'll make sure to ask as many of those questions as we can for Twila Brase of CCH Freedom when she joins me, God willing, later in the show. Also, question, might we see no tax on tips as a reality, possibly sooner rather than later? We'll make some sense of that later in the show as well. And Target reported its first quarter earnings earlier this week, and as a surprise to pretty much no one, they left a lot to be desired. So we'll make some sense.
One could say Target missed the target.
Sam, that's why he's here. He's brilliant. Thank you, Sam. Missed the target. Absolutely. We'll see one of the possible reasons as to why. All that and more. A lot to talk about on Financial Issues. I'm grateful for each of you. Happy to be here. Grateful for Sam and the team. We're going to have some fun today. Also grateful for CSN. Hey, if you found us on CSN, we're so thankful for you. I know yesterday we had several new partners join us from CSN, the Christian Satellite Network. So thank you to CSN. Mike Stevens and his team over there do a great job of bringing the gospel through the medium of radio. So we're thankful to be a part of the CSN family. If you found us there, we're grateful for you. If you're listening on a CSN station right now, thankful for you as well. Before all that, though, folks, let's get to this here. We're in the midst of our preborn Mother's Day campaign. We've made some great progress. We've raised about $114,000, a little bit more than that, as of this morning. That's almost halfway to our $280,000 goal. Again, we're trying to raise $280,000. That's the equivalent of 50 ultrasound machines to be placed into different preborn clinics across the country. Preborn is very strategic about this, folks. They set up their clinics in areas that tend to be high abortion traffic areas. So major cities, near Planned Parenthoods, different things like that. The goal of Preborn, one of Dan Steiner's goals, is to put Planned Parenthood out of business. We stand with him with that goal. We want to see the demise of Planned Parenthood. And so Preborn is in the fight, saving babies, defending babies, saving mothers as well from the horrors of going through an abortion, not just the emotional and spiritual trauma, but the physical trauma of it as well. It's really a terrible, dangerous thing. It's against God's design to murder your children, by the way. So Preborn is in it, in the fight. Each time we hit $5,600, another ultrasound machine is underwritten. So if you're a listener out there who has $5,600 and you're thinking, I want to be able to deploy this for kingdom uses, I was thinking maybe I'd give it later this year, I'm not sure about it, let me present to you an option. Preborn.com/FISM could be the place for you. Preborn.com/FISM. Your giving is between you and the Lord, folks. So it's whatever amount he tells you to give. It's whatever amount he commands you to give, and it's to whomever he commands you to give it. But it could be Preborn, and it could be an amount such as that, or maybe just $28. $28 provides one ultrasound scan. That could be a life-saving scan. There's a statistic that Preborn has backed up by evidence here that 80% of the time a mother hears that heartbeat on the ultrasound scan, she will choose life for her baby. She realizes that baby is a child, it's her child, and so she wants to keep the baby. And that's what we're going for here. We want that. Not only does Preborn do that, though, they also then provide resources for mothers and fathers after the baby is born. They provide diapers, they provide clothes for the baby, they provide all sorts of different things, counseling, biblical counseling as well, to help restructure and kind of recenter the foundation of these families on Christ, so that now that they've brought a little child into this world, they can raise that child in the fear and admonition of the Lord. It really is a wonderful ministry. I'm honored to be a part of it. I know our ministry at FISM is as well. Preborn.com/FISM. Please, folks, I cannot stress this enough. If you love FISM, do not give to us this month. Please don't give a single cent to FISM in the month of May. Give to Preborn. Give all of it to Preborn. If you're going to make a donation to FISM, don't do it. Make the donation to Preborn. We're getting matched dollar for dollar. Every dollar we raise for Preborn, an anonymous donor, a very generous person who loves both ministries, will give FISM an equal amount of money at the end of all of this. So once again, we're almost halfway there. We've got about a week and a half to go. I'm not concerned about that. God often works that way, and the FISM family is like that as well. Sam made the connection earlier to the Riders of Rohan coming in at the last minute to save the day in the Battle of Pelennor Fields in The Lord of the Rings. And that's a good description of who the FISM family is when it comes to this. So you've all done such a great job. Let's keep the pedal to the metal here. If you also want to give over the phone, you can dial pound 250, just say keyword baby. Make sure to tell the operator that you heard about this from Financial Issues as well. All right, folks, markets yesterday began the day mixed as Treasury yields were rising. They finished pretty low. The indices dropped a good bit. Dow Jones was down almost 2%. The S&P was down over 1.5%, and the Nasdaq just under 1.5%. All three down. As of right now, pre-markets a little bit mixed as they're trying to digest everything that's happened with the Trump bill being passed in the House, now going to the Senate, which we'll talk about actually right now. Sam, bring us the latest here on what's going on with this big, beautiful bill that is now on its way to the Senate floor.
Well, I can assure you, Seth, it's big. It's debatable how beautiful it is, considering the price tag. Yeah. And yes, most certainly it is, in fact, a bill.
There you go.
So yes, it passed last night of a vote of 215 to 214. Unsurprisingly, every Democrat voted no, along with 3 Republicans, one of them being the Libertarian Thomas Massie of Kentucky. As summarized by the Daily Wire, the bill aims to provide funding and support for Trump's priorities on border security, energy, and national defense. It also seeks to retain tax cuts from 2017 set to expire at the end of this year, raise the debt limit by trillions of dollars, implement no tax on tips and no tax on overtime policies, block federal dollars from funding transgender procedures, and much, much more.
So all that stuff, you can argue some of that sounds pretty good. Some of that I'm like, I'm not really sure about raising the debt limit. But that note about blocking federal dollars from funding transgender procedures, sign me up for that. That's pretty awesome.
Nothing but praise for that. There was a whole question about whether or not they were going to defund Planned Parenthood. I've not seen any information about that as of yet. That's not to say it's not happening. I pray it's so, but I'll let you know once I find that out.
Yeah, sounds good, Sam. Awesome. And, there was a big part of this also that had to do with the question of Medicaid. I know Trump and Representative Chip Roy were going at it a little bit here. Bring us up to speed on that as well, Sam, because I think that's an important aspect of this.
That's right. Medicaid was a huge bit of heartburn for this whole bill. Donald Trump on Tuesday actually warned Republicans not to mess around with it. He actually used stronger language than that, but this is a Christian show, so I can't use it.
Yep.
But it comes as hardline conservatives such as Texas Representative Chip Roy wanted to add immediate work requirements to the program. Under the current bill, or at least under the last version, there has been some negotiations in the meantime. Those work requirements wouldn't have kicked in until 2029, and Chip Roy said that was simply unacceptable. Here he is.
Our position is pretty simple. If you can work, you shouldn't be getting benefits without working. If you are able-bodied, you shouldn't be getting more benefits than the vulnerable for whom it was created. If you are on Medicaid, you shouldn't be getting more benefits than people on Medicare get. And if you are ineligible or illegal, you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be getting benefits at all.
Seems fairly reasonable, but Trump's thinking about this from a political angle. He probably doesn't want to have the backlash of the headlines saying like, hey, you took Medicaid away from people. So I understand where he's coming from a political mindset. It does appear after this meeting, Trump did change his tune just a little bit. Here's Trump again. Do we have that clip?
We're not doing any cutting of anything meaningful. The only thing we're cutting is waste fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. There's incompetent things, but we have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid. I don't think anybody minds if we cut that.
Trump sounding a little bit more like Representative Roy after that meeting. The final conclusion to this whole thing was work requirements have now been moved up to the end of 2026, met halfway in the middle, presumably to avoid any political blowback before the midterms.
Sam, I appreciate you bringing that up to us, man. We'll try to make some sense of this coming back on the other side of this break here. Good to see Trump moving a little closer to Roy's position there. I think that's good stuff. Lots to talk about on financial issues this morning, folks, and I invite you once again, join our conversation. If you want to talk to me and Sam live, you can do that right here at 610-363-1110. If you're on the chat, say hello as well. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I remember my life before I met Jesus. I was most of the time afraid. I remember one of my teachers gave the classroom an invitation for Crossroads. When they talked to me about the love of God, I felt a sort of peace in my heart. I will commit myself to learn more about God's Word, to be able to share the gospel to others.
To help reach more kids like Louise with the life-changing hope of the gospel, visit reachOurSchools.com.
Each May, we celebrate Mother's Day and the gift that mothers are to us. This May, you can help make motherhood possible by supporting Preborn. Preborn partners with clinics across the country, providing free ultrasounds and sharing the hope of Jesus Christ with women who are abortion-minded. When you give to Preborn, you're giving these women a chance to choose life. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Hey, folks, thanks for getting your questions in for Twila. I got a couple of those in there already, so I'll try to have those lined up. Just a reminder, she's coming on in about 15 minutes or so. So we'll have her on here. If you've got questions, still got time to get those in on the chat. You can call in as well. You can put them on social media, too. The best place to go, though, is financialissues.org/live. That one has the most eyes on it. So make sure that you get those questions in as quickly as you can. Circling back to what we talked about at the end of that segment there, Sam, it's good to see this. We're seeing, first of all, some level of compromise, which, I think when you're talking about the right stuff, I think you do need compromise in politics. But I'm also liking that it seems like Trump is realizing generally what Chip Roy was saying. And he said it there. What were the three words that he used again? It was waste, fraud, and abuse. Is that it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Waste, fraud, and abuse, which is what Chip Roy was describing.
Yeah, that's, absolutely right. So, here's my thought on this, Sam. I want to be very careful with this. But generally,
I think you should be reckless.
Yeah,
I think you should just go for it.
No, I'm generally not okay with the government handing out benefit packages at all. Honestly, I mean, I do think there's a certain level of that needs to be provided for by the hard work of individuals being allowed to do that, not being given these handouts so that they just rely on them. Unfortunately, Medicaid is one of those. I get the reasoning behind it, of course, that it's meant to help low-income people. But wouldn't it be far better for a low-income person to learn how to have a good work ethic, get a good job, start to build that wealth for themselves? That'd be so much better. So there are certainly exceptions where, from a health perspective, there are extreme situations where these benefits can be a great blessing. But I think those exceptions, they don't sway me from my belief that it's the job of the people to take care of people. Charities are a great thing. Christian organizations are a great thing with that. I'd say even workplaces providing within reason what their employees need. I think that's a great thing rather than having the government do it. So I hope that wasn't too offensive to people, but it's true. I'm not going to apologize for that. Yeah. Sam, what were your thoughts on this?
Well, all I could think was Chip Roy is right. Medicaid needs to be reformed, considering all the people that are taking Medicaid who should be working. They're able-bodied and they should be able to work at least to get those benefits. And we're having all this heartburn over something as simple as this. Medicaid made up about 8% of federal spending in 2024, over $600 billion. So something does need to change with that. But that's one of the smaller of the entitlement packages, including Social Security and Medicare. It's something like over 50%. So we're just really trimming around the margins here, and we're already banging our heads against the wall about this. It just goes to show that the debt problem and the amount of money we're spending, these issues are so deep-rooted, it's going to require some difficult and real adult conversations to get out of this hole, because people are depending on these things, but it's just not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sam, there's a part of me that thinks, you brought up Social Security. There's a big part of me that would love to say, just nuke the whole thing. But there are some serious repercussions that would affect millions of people. And I understand that, absolutely. So you're exactly right. There needs to be adult conversations that are happening here. And I think what we saw with Trump here and with Chip Roy, that's a step in the right direction. Sam, you had mentioned DOJ can only do so much. We're talking about this, I think, before the show. DOJ can only do so much. But it's things like this that will happen that maybe that's going to start really getting some things done when we're talking about trimming these things.
Right. DOJ is cutting out all the nonsense, which is fantastic. I'm all for it. Sign me up. Keep doing it forever and ever. Amen. But but that does not fix the problems of all these major entitlements, let alone all the other safety nets that we have in place and social programs. That's a whole separate ball game, and that's going to be something a lot more difficult to touch, because Americans love the idea of cutting spending until we're cutting something that affects them personally.
Exactly right. That's well said. So, folks, we're going to keep an eye on this as well. Obviously, this bill is going to the Senate now. We'll see if it survives. It was a close call in the House, my goodness, but we'll see if the Senate can take it the distance.
I'll say God bless Mike Johnson. I'm a critic of his sometimes. Sometimes I don't always agree what he does, but man, that guy has one tough job. It's a tough job. It's hurting cats, and it's amazing that anything got done with that slim margin.
Yeah, I certainly do appreciate him. I know he's a professing believer. I agree with you, Sam. I disagree with a lot of the way that he goes about doing certain things, seeming almost like trying to play the middleman. But in politics, sometimes you have to do that, and boy, it's not an easy job.
He kind of has to with margins like that. There's so many factions inside the Republican Party. Absolutely. You got the libertarians, you got the defense hawks, you got the more dovish people, you have the moderates. It's really hard to get all those people to play along, let alone talking about the Democrats.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, good stuff, Sam. Let's switch gears now and talk a little bit about Target. So they reported earnings earlier this week, missed on sales. Give us the update here, Sam. What was happening?
Not a good week for Target. You're right. They did miss Q1 earnings this week, citing a number of issues, including falling consumer sentiment, uncertainty about tariffs, and this is the interesting thing, backlash to its rollback of DEI policies. So not backlash to the DEI policies, which we're used to, something we talk about quite a bit on Financial Issues. No, this is the left-wing backlash to Target for getting rid of those policies. Their CEO, Brian Cornell, he said it's hard hard to know how each one of these factors contributed, although he can say that they're pretty sure that each one of these things was a factor. It's just hard to say what percent was each one playing. Target is also now cutting its sales forecast for the year as a result. Target did face surprising levels of blowback after ending its DEI policies, probably because it's one of the leaders in that stuff. It was one of the first major stores to implement transgender bathroom policies. They're known for being left-wing, so when they ended those causes, you can imagine the left-wing was fairly upset. That included a 40-day boycott led by far-left activist Reverend Jamal Bryant. We talked about that on the show. On the flip side, though, some conservatives, such as the American Family Association, have been ending their long-standing boycotts on Target, but it appears that that's not necessarily making up for the impact that the left is having on Target.
Yeah, really interesting here, Sam. So a couple thoughts I want to share with this, folks, right off the bat. It is so easy for us to blame other people for our own folly. And from a personal standpoint, I think we can learn a lesson here. Each of the reasons Target gave for its poor Q1 performance earnings is someone else's fault. Did you notice that? It was really interesting. I can hear them talking to them and comforting them through this night now. Failing consumer sentiment. Well, you can blame that on a shaky economy, right? The tariffs, blame all that on Trump. That's all Trump's fault, I'm sure Target would say. How about the backlash from DEI policies even? They could blame that easily on customers who maybe got too offended at Target's, we'll call them questionable marketing decisions from 2023, particularly June of 2023. They could say none of it's our fault. It can't be our fault. Surely it's not. Folks, we so easily fail to take responsibility for our own mistakes. And that's what's happening here. Even when now Target is experiencing the very real consequences of those actions, they're lacking wisdom, they're lacking humility. This is a good object lesson for us. We've got to be humble, we've got to be wise. We have to admit when we have messed up. This is important in every area of life. Marriage, you're talking about, with your children as well, in your job. Every area is so very important. I think Target really is kind of an archetype, at least becoming one, of Proverbs 16 verse 18, which is pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And it's interesting that we're talking about pride going before destruction because the verse just refers to normal haughtiness that we all experience. But in Target's case, it's very literally all the gay stuff that they were doing from 2016 to 2023. That kind of pride applied there as well, and it did go before destruction. Now, about the blowback that Target's facing here from the pro-DEI consumers. This was interesting. Sam, you're right. We talked about this before. I'm obviously in favor of Target's decision to slash the DEI stuff. I think that was great. I love that. I stand opposed to Reverend Bryant. I use the word Reverend in quotes because I'm not sure he's even qualified to be a pastor, and the others that are with him ideologically. And I personally, this is my personal opinion, I have no problem from a conscious standpoint shopping at Target now because they're not promoting the things that they were from 2016 to 2023, at least outwardly. That said, I feel not a single drop or ounce of compassion or sympathy or loyalty for Target. They are laying in the bed they made. That's what's happening. They're laying in the bed they made.
It's basically audience capture, right?
That's
They've
exactly
been catering to these people for so long that it was very difficult for them to change. And unsurprisingly, there was blowback from the people they've been courting all this time. You know, you reap what you sow.
That's exactly, you reap what you sow, Sam. The example I can think of, imagine you have a man, he cheats on his wife with an adulteress. He then marries the woman that he cheated with. He falls for her. He leaves his wife. And then she inevitably does to him what he did to his first wife. She cheats on him. Now she's gone. And he's angry and indignant because he's like, well, wait a second. Why me? What happened? I lost everything. Now I'm alone. It was his fault. He's responsible because of his first sin of cheating in the first place. All of this, I believe, stems from, in some way, Target's initial egregious acts of cozying up to the monster of sexual deviancy in this country in the aftermath of the Obergefell case. 2016, when they first started doing the transgender bathroom stuff, that was where this began. And now they're experiencing backlash from the same people, like you said, Sam, the same people they were once trying to curry the favor of. It's just the consequence of their own actions. That's really all this is. Absolutely. So to kind of bring it personally for us, what does this mean for us? Number one, Target remains biblically irresponsible. In case you didn't know that, Target remains biblically irresponsible. They're not biblically responsible. We love that they slash the DEI stuff. That's great. It's a conscience issue. I know many of you probably still don't feel comfortable shopping there. That's totally fine. Some of you do. I think that's fine as well. But they're involved in the LGBTQ stuff still behind the scenes, as well as abortion activism and sales. So that means that us, Christian investors, should not give them a single cent of our investor dollars. Whether shares of the company itself, whether through mutual funds, shouldn't do that. If your conscience allows, you're free to patron there if you'd like. Just remember your stewardship responsibility is over what you own at that moment, not what others have. And so you own in that moment your money. If you make a transaction, you buy something from Target, that thing that you bought is now yours and you're to be a good steward over that. But the last thing I'd tell you, and this is most important, folks, is be wise, please. This is a great example, again, as I said, of wisdom and humility. You and I will fail. Morally, we will fail in this life. I have failed. You all have failed. The wise man seeks restoration of his own heart and forgiveness from God. And that starts with admitting what he has done, admitting specifically, I did this wrong. I messed up. And my hope now is that Target, as it is living with the flurry of bad decisions it made and living in the bed that it made, that can be an object lesson for us, that we need to walk in purity in all of our ways and admit when we've done wrong and resolve to do better. My hope as we look at Target is that could be what we take from this lesson. So I hope that was able to be of encouragement to you folks. Again, Twila Brase coming up in the next segment. If you've got questions for Twila, you can still put them up. I'd get them in the next 2 or 3 minutes or so that we can get those up for her. We got her coming up. More financial issues, of course, right after this. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow. Shanna will be on the show tomorrow. For the rest of you, more financial issues coming up. Stick with us.
Each May, we celebrate Mother's Day and the gift that mothers are to us. But for many women carrying a child, motherhood feels uncertain. They're facing fear, doubt, and some are considering abortion. This May, you can help make motherhood possible by supporting Preborn. Preborn partners with clinics across the country, providing free ultrasounds and sharing the hope of Jesus Christ with women who are abortion-minded. When you give to Preborn, you're giving these women a chance to choose life. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. And when we come together to sponsor 200 ultrasounds, we'll equip a Preborn clinic with a life-saving ultrasound machine. Will you help make motherhood possible? Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today. That's preborn.com/FISM.
My wife and I, we moved into this neighborhood. We had some experience with Crossroads Kids Club. We had served at another club. We kind of thought to ourselves, like, it would be really, really cool for us to actually bring in a club that was able to share the love of Jesus with kids directly into the school. And so we started our Crossroads at Hilltop.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He died on the cross to pay for our sins. That He will help me in every way.
There is just such tremendous opportunity to reach kids in some of these areas that just aren't being reached.
Sometimes I pray every night. When I feel alone sometimes, God is right there sitting next to me. I can rely on Him no matter what happens.
To learn more about Crossroads Kids Club and how you can get involved, visit reachOurschools.com.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. Thank you all for joining this morning. We'll do our chat rundown in the next segment here. I see so many of you. Great comments all around there. We'll try to get to some of those later on in the show. But great to see you all this morning. Markets just opened. Let's see what they're doing right now. The ever calm, predictable markets, right? No, that was sarcasm. Dow Jones is down about 0.25%. The S&P 500, same thing. And the NASDAQ down about 0.1% as we're opening this morning. All right, folks, a special guest. You know her, you love her, dear friend of ours, Twila Brase. Twila is the president and co-founder of CCH Freedom. Again, you can check it out, cchfreedom.org. Great place to go if you care about your health freedoms, if you care about protecting those freedoms. They have all different resources to explore and look at there, things about Real ID and the wedge, different things like that. cchfreedom.org. We appreciate Twila and her expertise so very much. I always look forward to these interviews. Twila, welcome back. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thanks,
absolutely. Seth. And I know you've been making the rounds recently, Twila. You were on Alex Jones recently, Cross Politic. I'm sure some of our listeners might have seen that Alex Jones interview. I had the pleasure of watching it. You did a great job with that. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's get into this here just a bit, Twila. So last week, Sam and I discussed on the show somewhat of a controversial order by the Trump team with the purpose of slashing drug prices for Americans and really kind of making a level playing field. So what can you tell us about this move and what it could mean for drug costs for Americans?
Well, I think that President Trump is aiming to do the easy thing, which is to use his executive authority to essentially impose price controls. I don't think we really understand how he might do that, but I do think that that's what's going on here, which is not really a American freedom-minded thing to do, right?
Right.
He does feel the pain, and there's a lot of pain in this country about pharmaceuticals. He does acknowledge that across the world, other countries have lower prices, but the reason why other countries have lower prices is because they're socialist countries. And it's either that the drug companies gives them access to the price that the country is willing to pay for, or the drug won't be sold in that country. And so I remember that we had at our gala, we were having our gala actually in September, but at our gala like several years ago, we had a Canadian come down as our keynote speaker, and he talked about the fact that there were only 8 drugs that were available for, I don't know, whatever this condition was, but in the world of drugs, there were so many other options. But Canada only lets you have access to these 8 drugs. And so I think the thing to think about is Trump has to be careful if he goes into the territory of, price controls and just saying, we, the government, are going to rule, rather than doing what really is necessary to bring the prices down. And what's really necessary to bring the prices down is to cut the regulation. So the FDA, listeners may not know this, but to get a drug through the FDA is typically $2 billion and 10 years, unless you're the COVID shot.
Yeah, right. There you go. That on there, right? Special privileges for the COVID shot. That's right.
Yes. And so, what this really means is because we have that kind of a structure, only the big companies can even handle it. Anybody who's a little company hopes to, come up with something really innovative and sell it to one of the big companies who will then take it through this entire process because only they can deal with it. And one of the things that happens with that is, let's just say you're someone with a rare disease. I know somebody that there's only 40 people in the whole world that have this disease, right? Well, if you're somebody who has an innovative idea about how to tackle that disease, you're never going to make it happen. Because there's no way with 40 people, only 40 people in the world that could use your product, that you're ever going to make up that $2 billion and 10 years of time. It's not going to happen. And so what's really important is to get the regulation out of there. And, we have regulation on drugs that we don't have on cars. Let's just think of some other dangerous things that are out there that don't have any kind of regulation like that. So this is an entire scheme to really keep the big players in play and keep the little guys out. And Trump could do really big things about cutting the amount of regulation that's needed, even cutting down the FDA, even give a pilot project to let people go out and make their own products, but live or die on the basis of how good the product is and how well they warn people about it. And, there are other things that are more free market that he could do. I don't know that this is going to work. I think the pharmaceutical companies might sue him, and just for the price controls.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting, Twila, I hear you say that. I agree with you completely. I'm a fan of the free market, even when it comes to our, to the medical field, to drug costs. There are some critics, even conservatives, who, when they heard this, claimed this could be Trump. What Trump's doing could be a step towards socialized medicine. Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're so close in this country to socialized medicine, but we're all living in the corporate version of it, unless you're in healthcare sharing, right? And so, anytime the government, wields its power to take control of an industry or take control of prices, it means that things are being socialized. Yeah. And so, absolutely. And it's just a matter of, in this country, companies can actually sue. In truly socialized, government-run companies, it's very hard to sue because you're suing the government.
Absolutely. Folks, a quick plug for Samaritan Ministries, by the way. If you don't want to be on socialized medicine, join Samaritan Ministries. A great way to exhibit your freedom as well for over your health. Twila, thank you for that information. Hey, you had shared, by the way, in your answer to my first question about your gala that's coming up in September. Is that something that's open to the public? And if so, is there information that we can look at there?
Yeah. Well, if you're a donor, you've already received a Save the Date postcard. If you aren't, it's not yet on, but it's going to be called, let's see, what is it going to be called? It's Escaping the Medical Matrix. And it'll be in Bloomington, which is really close to the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. And so, if people would like to come, we always have a very good time, but it's also a great time just to raise funds for our organization. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year, so we really depend on it.
Awesome. So if you're interested in it, perhaps make a donation to CCH Freedom, and then they'll get on that kind of list of being able to know more. That's awesome. Thank you, Twila. So,
it will be on the website, but it won't be on the website until probably July or late June.
Good. Awesome. We'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. So earlier in the show, Twila, Sam and I were discussing some of the potentials of Medicaid reform that might be happening here. What do you think needs to be done in that regard? Give us your expertise on this.
Well, so I have a solution that I think nobody is talking about, but I was in D.C. last week and I was talking about this solution because people don't look at it. And particularly Republicans really believe in the health plan as the way that they have to control costs in Medicare and Medicaid. But actually the health plan looks at Medicare and Medicaid as their profit centers. And why is that? Because they get a per member, per month payment from the federal government for these programs, or in the case of Medicaid, from the state as well. Yeah. And then they have the power to ration care. They have the power to limit care. And that's why this is really profitable for them. So the very best thing to have happen would be to get the health plans out of Medicaid. Only pay for services when people need services. That would be fully accountable. We have no idea what those health plans are doing with our money, but it's a boatload of taxpayer money and they are reaping the benefits off of it. And then they are rationing the care on the other side. And so really going back to the government directly paying for the care of these individuals makes all the accountability of the money. Everybody knows what's happening and nobody gets paid for when there's no care happening. And the other solution is to actually reward charity. And charity is something that is really inexpensive, relatively speaking, to those who provide it. And they wouldn't have to do all the paperwork to get Medicaid dollars, which oftentimes don't pay even for the cost of the paperwork. So we really need to go back to our charitable impulse in this country and take care of the people who really need taken care of. And then we have to go back to getting real health insurance, which is real affordable. So I talked to this one guy who was paying $65 a month for a $1,500 deductible before the Affordable Care Act. So these are some really simple things that are politically difficult because there's so many power players in the mix that want to keep access to those federal dollars and want to claim that they're covering everyone when coverage does not equal care. It never has. And charitable care is often more kind and more compassionate than anything coming out of Medicaid.
Yeah. And I can only imagine maybe even more effective too. That's great, Twila. Thank you. Hey, we got a quick question here from a listener. Might try to squeeze this in before the end of our segment. Brian and Kara from Illinois were asking, Twila, are you happy with the recent FDA actions, or is it too little? I assume this is regarding the different vaccine things. What would you say to that?
Yeah. So they came out just a few days ago with this new idea for what to do for the COVID shot. And, I don't know if this is because of Operation Warp Speed with the president that they just don't shut down the COVID shot. They should shut down the COVID shot. And so what they said instead is that they'll let it be given without extra research to people who are over 65 and with conditions and everybody that has certain health risk conditions. But then they're going to require more research for everyone else. I don't know that we need research. Why should we spend money when there's so much evidence of the damage and the danger, and COVID has mutated into a nothing for most people, right? And so I think this is something about what do they say, threading the needle, right? Between Operation Warp Speed with President Trump and knowing all the danger, all the damage that is happening out there, all the people who are suffering, and nobody's taking care of them. Why aren't they taking care of them? Right?
Amen.
That's what they should be doing.
Twyla, that's so well said, and we appreciate your expertise every time you come on the show. I look forward to the next time we have you on. Folks, again, Twila Brase, president and co-founder, CCH Freedom, cchfreedom.org, place to go to learn more, cchfreedom.org. We'll be right back after this break. Stick with us.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
May is a time to honor mothers, their strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love. But for many women, motherhood feels uncertain and overwhelming. Fear and doubt leave them considering abortion. You can give hope. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today.
I remember my life before I met Jesus. I was most of the time afraid. I remember one of my teachers gave the classroom an invitation for Crossroads. When they talked to me about the love of God, I felt a sort of peace in my heart. I learned how to pray to God. It helps me through my day. I will commit myself to learn more about God's Word, to be able to share the gospel to others. Jesus has been a big impact in our family. Now we go to church every Sunday. I see more happiness and less arguments. God's love is so perfect, I will not change God for anything.
To help reach more kids like Louise with the life-changing hope of the gospel, visit reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Thanks for joining us today, folks. Boy, always love having Twila on. Great to talk to her and to hear the good work that CCH Freedom is doing. Good morning to all of you. Lisa in Texas and Jason in Florida, John in Alabama. Good to see you. Debbie from Kentucky. Been a while. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you again. George in South Carolina, our encourager. And we got Nelson, the Lord Father of the chat, as it were. James from South Carolina. Let's see who else we got there. Actually, Nelson had a good question earlier. I wanted to get to Nelson's question. Let's see if I can find it here real quickly. So here it was. Sam, it was from our conversation earlier saying, please remember, Social Security is not an entitlement. I paid 45 years into the mandatory system. Never will agree with means testing for Social Security as they eventually hit the middle class on Social Security. Nelson, totally understand that, man. Completely respect that. I think the point Sam and I were trying to make is that you should not have had to pay for 45 years into a mandatory system. That in and of itself is structurally wrong, right? So it's for the people who have paid into it, it is not an entitlement because you've paid into it. We are paying into it also, but the question has to be asked. I mean, obviously that's a step towards socialized, healthcare, socialized government, and I wouldn't be a fan of that for sure. And I'm sure you'd probably, agree with that also. But I totally agree with what you're saying. When you talk about, okay, I've paid into this, I've been forced to pay into it. The government has stolen my money in the form of taxes and put it into this thing here that now we're wondering if it's even going to be there, for the next generation or so.
Although just linguistically, couldn't you say, Nelson, I'm entitled to my Social Security because I paid into it? That's just a linguistic thing. But absolutely, I get what you're saying.
Totally, it's a great comment, man, and we do certainly. See what you're saying there. Matt from Georgia also in the chat. Good to see you. I think I got everybody. Ann from Alabama's in there as well. Again, so many of you. There's a lot more people on the chat than the ones who actually engage in the chat. So
you're probably missing one person, and they're going to hate you forever now.
Please don't. Please don't hate me. No, it's good stuff. So great to see all of you today. Sam, you had mentioned there was just one quick thing that we wanted to talk about in regards to what Twila had said there at the end there. What did you want to share?
Well, she was talking about deregulation and how that's probably going to be the better, more free market way to lower costs. And I'm seeing here that the HHS and FDA just a couple weeks ago released a statement saying that's exactly what they're going to do. They announced the 10-to-1 rule, which says for every new regulation introduced, at least 10 existing regulations must be eliminated. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary said, quote, by cutting outdated red tape, we can lower costs, increase access to innovation, and let clinicians spend more time with patients.
So it's a lot of what Twila just said there. It's exactly right. So good to see that for sure. All right, folks, we've got the Ag Report here. Craig Haugaard coming on with us. If you listened to the show yesterday, of course, you heard Craig give some great insight on why we do the Ag Report. So I'd love to encourage all of you, if you're not a farmer or a rancher, put into practice some of what Craig said yesterday about kind of listening for this from a holistic standpoint of trying to figure out, okay, this has to do with the food that I eat every day. So here's today's Ag Report with Craig Haugaard, and then we'll be back right after.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for May 22nd. Well, corn continues to benefit from a weaker U.S. dollar and fund short covering. And with farmers focused on getting the crop planted, we're starting to see processors raise their basis bid in order to attract enough corn to keep those plants running. So currently we have one of those unique situations where both the futures price and the basis seem to be firming up. July corn finished today 6.5 cents higher at $4.61 per bushel. Much of the value of soybeans lately seems to rely on politics. So any positive indications that may move the U.S. budget bill forward to help soybeans, as do any positive developments that revolve around Chinese trade negotiations. Now, yesterday's price optimism was probably one part budget bill and 2 parts weather. The weather assist coming from localized flooding in portions of Argentina. The end result was July beans finishing 9 3/4 cents higher at 10.62 3/4. Wheat also benefited from the weaker dollar as we saw wheat futures close higher across all 3 markets. Minneapolis July wheat was 6.5 cents higher at 6.04 1/4. Kansas City rose by 4 1/4 cents, closing at 5.40 1/2. And Chicago was 3 1/4 cents better at 5.49 1/4. Well, the cotton futures chart kind of resembles a dead man's EKG. It's just kind of laying there. July futures were very unimpressive yesterday as they finished today a whopping 5 points lower at 66.07. Livestock futures were mixed. August live cattle were 80 cents higher at $208.65 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle dropped by $1.07 as they closed out today at $296.42 per hundred. And we had July lean hog futures $1.02 lower at $102.52 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures absolutely caught fire during yesterday's session. When the closing bell finally sounded, June futures were 68 points higher at 19.63. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Well, Sam, I found who I missed in the chat earlier. Gramps from Louisiana, great chat name, by the way, saying, what happened to no tax on Social Security for retirees? We got kicked in the teeth again. Right on, Gramps. And again, a great chat name. That is just awesome. So well done there.
I also want to point out that Craig said that milk futures caught fire. I didn't know that milk could catch on fire.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
That's right. Pretty crazy
Concerning
stuff. Absolutely. Well, folks, let's close our show here talking about no tax on tips. Interesting stuff. So we saw the Senate pass Ted Cruz's no tax on tips bill. Sam, give us the latest on this.
Unanimously, I might add, which is a very rare thing. I think Ted Cruz said it was a miracle that it passed. So let me find the details right here. Yes, it passed unanimously on Tuesday. Here is the Texas senator himself celebrating its passage.
And this is common sense, bipartisan tax reform. Look, I think we ought to be fighting for waiters and waitresses. We ought to be fighting for bartenders, taxi cab drivers, Uber drivers. We ought to be fighting for beauticians and nail salon workers. We ought to be fighting for all the men and women who are working and working hard.
And of course, codifies President Trump's campaign promise that was also stolen and touted by Kamala Harris. So maybe that's where the bipartisanship comes in is, hey, Kamala Harris thought this was a good idea too. We kind of have to do it.
Are like, wait a second, we heard this in the campaign trail of our gal. That's right.
Wait a minute, this whole thing was your idea, right? Yeah, so what does it do? What does this actually mean? So the bill would create a tax deduction worth up to $25,000 for tips for those earning up to $160,000 a year. The House also passed a similar law in its big, beautiful bill.
Good stuff there as always, Sam. Thank you. So some things to consider with this, folks. First of all, my default response, and this is not going to surprise any of you, my default response is when I hear tax cuts, I'm always like, where do I sign off on this? Yes. Yes and amen. I think taxes should generally be cut.
Take my money, but no, it's actually give me back my money.
Give me back my money. That's exactly right. One of the biggest issues in this nation is the invasion of privacy in the form of taxes. I have colloquially referred to my daughter as a space invader because she loves physical touch. She will invade the space of me and my wife constantly. That it's very cute when she does it. It's not so cute when the federal government does it in the form of taxes. Okay, that's what the federal government does.
Is it cute when she asks you to pay your taxes to her? Is that cute?
That is cute. That is cute. Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's crazy stuff when we start to realize most taxation, not some of it, most of it is legalized thievery. It starts to become clear. And I got to remind you folks, I'm not anti-taxes across the board. I think they can be used for good things. Infrastructure is a good thing. Military defense is a good thing. Rebuilding a broken border system is a good thing. But boy, it's got to be cut down. And Sam, you were right. This taxes on tips idea, Trump's idea, Kamala hawked it, potentially could be a great place to start here, potentially to implement some tax cuts.
I'm just happy to see Congress actually passing bills. It's crazy. They've done absolutely nothing since President Trump has taken office. Trump is not supposed to be the king just passing laws with executive orders. Congress actually has a job to do, and it's kind of sad. This is one of the first times they've actually done something so far. We're 5 months into this, and they're just finally starting to do something.
That's exactly right, Sam. That's really well said. All income is earned income, right? So you worked for it, you get to keep it. I think with tips, and again, tips are tricky. They're really tricky, but that comes with an extra level of having earned it, or at least having should earned it. Here's what a tip is. You performed your job at an exemplary level. So the most clear example is restaurants. You served the food great. You were kind, polite, quick, on time. You got the orders right. So I, out of the goodwill of my own heart, am going to give you a little extra than you earned, a little extra, because the food was worth it. You earned that good gift, so I'm giving it to you. And that's what it is. It's a gift. The fact that those few extra dollars are also not beyond the reach of an invasive federal government is beyond ridiculous to me. I don't have any skin in the game. I don't make my salary based on tips, which I'm thankful for that, by the way. I like having a set salary, but I'm for this nonetheless. Now, I think we have to ask the question also, what would this do to the uncontrollable blaze known as tipping culture? Because that is seriously a problem in our country. I do think that there's a reason why so many people are in your face about the tips. A chunk of the tip is now being stolen as well from the federal government. If this gets resolved here, it's not the cure, but it could help. I think the cure of tipping culture is humility, gratitude. I think businesses paying employees their fair share. I think it's woefully wrong.
Although, of course, you could now see more tips because you don't have to pay taxes on them.
Exactly
so more jobs and employees are going to want that. So it could have the inverse effect.
It certainly could.
At least tipping is voluntary, unlike taxes.
Exactly. From a charitable standpoint, you would hope that this would go well there. Interesting stuff here, folks. I'll say this lastly. It's good to see Senator Cruz doing battles against pornography. Sam, you had mentioned that Take It Down Act, which aims to empower to protect and empower victims of AI pornography. That's something that wasn't really right in your face a part of this, but I think that's really good stuff here. We stand against the pornography industry, by the way, as much as we stand against the abortion industry, as much as we stand against the LGBTQ and human rights abuses. We believe it should end. Boy, it was a busy show, folks. A little bit out of breath here, but grateful for each and every one of you. I hope you'll join us for the show tomorrow. Shanna will be back live. It's going to be great to have her. Get your calls in early for Rapid Fire Friday, 9:05 Eastern Time. Until then, remember, everything you have belongs to the Lord. So be found good and faithful stewards with it. God bless.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.